Well, here we are, the Portugal resident podcast. It's the news review with Natasha, Donn, and me, Munson. Natasha, let me ask you first how you are and how you're coping with the situation that is live as we speak. Right, this is a terrible situation for Portugal. How are you personally? You okay?
We're all right in the Algarve. I mean, there might be localized incidents, and there have been localized incidents of flooding and stuff, and trees falling down. But we're so okay in comparison to the rest of the country.
Yes, we our home and family equally. We feel very fortunate and very sad for what's going on. I think
Yeah,
it's no underestimate to call this a national disaster for Portugal, and it's not over yet. I think you said this. It's only just beginning. These were your prophetic words last week when we spoke.
I
It's
know.
only
I
just
hate
beginning.
being so prophetic. Did the same in the Christmas podcast, saying everything was, nobody should go anywhere.
Yes, you're
And
absolutely
I
right.
know I should stop talking. Um, It is. It's unbelievable. It's, the worst type of storms in most people's living memory. Yes, there have been terrible situations of flooding and endless days or weeks of rain in the past, but we haven't had it on such a national scale and we definitely haven't had the strength of winds that downed all those power lines.
Yes, yeah, and it's one thing after another, isn't it? It's the accumulation of these things,
Yeah.
and no sooner have you, or we're not recovering in any meaningful. Well, some people
No.
have obviously, but Kristen is going to take a lot of recovering from. Leonardo followed soon after, and now Marta. I think you're
Yeah.
taking issue with these constant names, aren't you?
I said, yeah, that's what I was just saying to you. I don't know why they just keep giving them different names. I think it's almost to scare us. I mean, it's just bad weather. It really is. I've got I talk to all the local people, and obviously there's one woman who sells her vegetables, and she says this is the way it always used to be.
Yeah,
Admittedly, I think she's not quite right there, but I mean, there are many, many incidents. There was one time when there were terrible storms in the 60s, 67, I think it was, and apparently 700 people died. It was just
seriously.
that Salazar at the time, the dictator, was in charge, and he
Yeah,
put a kind of blanket censorship on reporting these things so that
oh,
other people didn't know, and also the wider world didn't know.
I see. Just sort of turned a blind eye to it and was just in denial about it, presumably at that
Well,
time.
no, I don't think they turned a blind eye. I think they were trying to mop up and everything. But I think what they were trying to do is not let the rest of the world know what kind of
Okay.
state they were in. And
That's
I
still
mean,
a problem, though, isn't it? At the moment, people don't know what's going on in Portugal around the rest of the world, but that's probably because of news overload. We're in a very different time to 1967, of course. I mean, there is so much going on, isn't there, on the global news agenda?
exactly. And I think everybody is much more excited about Lord Mandelson and Keir Starmer and
And the Epstein
President
files and
Trump
so on.
and
Yeah,
the Epstein files. And, it's just the news focus is very sort of clunkety clunk. And we've stopped even talking about Gaza. We've stopped talking about Israel, and yet they go on,
and Ukraine.
claiming
Yes,
land on the West
Korea.
Bank and
That's so true.
killing Palestinians. So, I mean, it's very bad the way we do our news these days. We all follow each other.
It's feverish as well. We
Yeah,
could focus on three of your reports or resident reports. The PM addressing the country yesterday, and you
yeah,
wrote about that. And the current emergency amid the state of calamity in, I believe, 68 municipalities of Portugal. Tejo
mhm.
Riverside residents urged to leave homes as river levels surge. That is the most serious bit of news for Portugal, I would say, at the moment. The
It is.
evacuations in the
It is,
aftermath.
and there've been quite a few people. Well over 100 people have already been evacuated. I mean, the great thing is that now the military is really involved. You've got the navy, you've got the army, you've got lots of little naval boats, and they're zipping through the towns that have been flooded, and they're rescuing people because the floodwaters in certain areas like Alcácer de Sal, it's reached the first floor. I mean,
I saw
it's
that. It was shocking.
bizarre.
Two things really shocked me. It was Casa de Sal, where we
Yeah.
were before Christmas, and it's the most beautiful
Yeah,
town by the river
I
there.
know.
The Christmas illuminations were superb, delightful, and to see the roads that we walked on and crossed absolutely covered in water, and the level up to the first floor where people are on in their first floor seeking
Exactly.
help from passing boats is
I
unbelievable.
know.
And in Alcobaça, I saw some footage from Alcobaça yesterday
Yeah.
where You usually see water lapping up against a door, don't you? And the outer walls of a property. The water in Alcobaça in this clip I saw was coming through the door from the back of the house and through the electrical distribution boxes. It was coming out of the house into the street from the back, not going into the front. It was quite disturbing.
Terrifying.
This is what's going on at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, but the whole thing is terrifying because we've had so many weeks of rain now that the land is absolutely sudden. I mean, even in my tiny little house, I found one day I came in and I had basically water running from the top of the house to the bottom in one area. And what had happened is that it had come up through the floor. It hadn't come from the roof. It had come up through the floor because we're on a hill and the hill was draining, and houses are not, natural parts of the landscape. And so they managed to find their way in.
They do. And this is what we need to be especially vigilant about at the moment, people in floodplains near rivers. And this reporting by colleague Michael, this is the commander of a civil protection, Mario Silvestre. Just a little bit from the article here. What we recommend to everyone is that as a preventative measure, they remove belongings from their homes, put themselves in safety and leave their homes. In other words, go to safe places whenever possible, Silvestre said. Safe behavior at this moment is critical so that we can get through this episode without having victims to mourn. Finally, during evacuations, residents should only take essential items, and by essential, we mean things like medication. This is a stern warning from yesterday, is it not? This is looking very serious for Portugal. And as I said before, this is a national disaster. When do you have any sense of when we're going to see some relief or better days, keeping an eye on the weather, as you must
probably around the 12th, 14th of February.
Really? Wow. Okay, so over a week away from any.
We've got another 6 days of misery and hell, and actually some of the communities that still have no power. This is the thing, and we can't imagine what they're going through. Well, actually, yes, we can, because there was one very, very upset woman who was the parish council president of a little place called São Simão de Lite in Pombal. And she said, that's it. We've been forgotten. We're not voting. I don't care. She was really venting. Some of those communities, because of the problems of the high winds that push down the massive pylons, they will be out of power. They could be out of power, I heard, until the end of the month easily. So that's terrible.
I thought you may be critical of both the PM and the governmental response, and not the case. I discovered this morning as we were chatting before recording this morning.
As I was saying to you, I think, quite frankly, that the response has been as good as anyone could do. It's unbelievable circumstances. Mm-hmm. You can't suddenly fly in like Superman in the rain, in the wind, and patch up roofs. You can't do it. I mean, there's a little group of people trying to restore a house behind me, which is, I think, why I had the water running through the house the other day. But they've just given up. They've just gone, because you can't work in this weather.
Yeah.
So I think the government is doing as best as it can. Yes, of course, it's got some ministers that are a little bit more sort of, or a little bit less empathetic than others. Well, very few seem to be empathetic. But then again, you got to remember that these politicians are all kind of Lisbonites. They don't really get touched by tragedies.
Real life.
It is difficult for them to empathize with people who live in little isolated communities and are quite happy with, their tiny lives.
That's an interesting observation. Yes, and this is a good time to be in a city, isn't it? People are often commenting in the times we live in that cities are quite vulnerable and fragile places potentially. But this has been the best place to be, I think. Lisbon certainly. And if your life is completely in Lisbon, you might not get a sense of this situation.
Yeah, thanks to this fantastic job that they did on the drainage tunnels. That the mayor, this latest mayor, Moedas, did this amazing project that had been waiting for years, because it hadn't been done for various reasons. But thanks to that, Lisbon hasn't been seeing the floods that it used to see. Lisbon used to see the most terrible floods.
Did it? Right. Okay.
Yeah, the worst floods. But
And that's
now it's
interesting,
been,
isn't it? Yeah, something he's
it's had
not
this
getting credit
fantastic.
for, probably, apart from you this morning. He has been criticised in recent times, of course, with the funicular disaster. But perhaps kudos to him then for keeping Lisbon safe with that drainage project. And yes, dwelling on this, I suppose what's described sometimes as the tone deafness of politicians. And I think, previously we have observed that our prime minister can be a little insensitive, isn't the right word, is it? But just, as you say, unempathetic.
Aspergery. But the thing is that,
Said, yes.
as I was also saying to you, before we went on air, I think that this is not the time to criticize. This is just the time to pull together, listen to what they've got to give, get it to the people that need it. There's going to be so much clearing up to do, and it's going to take so long. It's going to take months and months and months. I mean, look what happened in Porto Alegre the other day. Was it Porto Alegre? Yeah, I think it was a little place. No, what was it? It was Porto Alegre. The Serra de São Mamed, which is a huge hillside, and which is actually known for its fabulous water. I've seen water on sale in supermarkets from Serra de São Mamed, but there was a huge avalanche of water and rocks and mud yesterday morning in the early hours, and dozens of people, their cars were completely destroyed, carried away. And
and you make a good point, because months, possibly years after the news agenda has moved on, as it will inevitably do, and I think the stories globally are just going to get bigger and bigger, people will be left on an individual basis when they contend with the aftermath. And that's why I think this is such a serious national disaster here. We have had terrible fires, obviously, and in the last, in living memory, and those have been horrific for the country. But this is another scale altogether, isn't it, in terms of how many people it's touching and how much infrastructure it's affecting, and how long the clear up is going to take, as you quite rightly point out there. We've a few people joining us before we take a bit of a further analysis of the PM's words last night. You were quick onto that last night, Natasha. Gemini's here, Hugh up in Vezieux, Patty on the Silver Coast here, T and TPT are here with a bon dia. Hugh telling us that there were 36 mils overnight.
I never understand that, because a millimeter to me sounds so tiny. How can 36 millimeters be a problem? But somebody must understand it better than me.
Well, it's nearly, 197 mil for the week, though. It's adding up, isn't it? And inundating, literally, as we see on the Portuguese TV channels. I mean, I suppose people are being kept abreast of this. Any Portuguese cafe you go into will probably have CNN on, so people are learning what's going on across the country, at least in Portugal. Queen and Convict here. Bon dia. We have no power. A friend can't keep her son's medication at the right temperature. Yikes. We can't get materials to help patch up, as the priority has gone to government departments for repairs. Well, that's in central Portugal. Hope that changes for you soon there. And from 3 Peas in a Pod in the UK, bon dia todos as well. Back to the PM then. So you think he did a pretty good sort of statesman-like job yesterday?
Well, I think he did as best as he could. He said we're going to get the help to people who need it by February the 9th, which is Monday. That's not bad. He basically said that they were going to, they've dispatched teams, I presume, with dongles to go to the areas that have no power, so that these areas can sign up to the government support, which is basically for people that didn't have any insurance. They're going to be given 10,000 euros if they can, have the right reasons for receiving it, which they undoubtedly will, for their roofs and for other, structural damages or other damages that they've suffered. And he basically, I think he said and did what he could. As I said, and you can't be Superman and just swoop in and fix everything. Nobody could.
No, true.
I would have thought that actually the other parties are thinking, thank goodness it's not our responsibility, because this is huge. He did say that this government was going to start doing things that have never been done before, in the form of the way they're going to deal with these emergencies, so that they get the help to people instantly without bureaucratic hurdles. Afterwards, there will be checking by the municipalities. And if there's seen to be any fiddling or taking advantage when there shouldn't have been done, people will be, posteriorly.
Caught up upon. I
they'll be
noticed
hauled over the coals.
You reported on that. I mean, this is something we can go into here. Things that have never been done before. That's an interesting bit of.
There's two things more they're going to do. They're talking about starting to bury the pylons instead of having these massive pylons that are not withstanding the gusts that we had.
Interesting.
There's something there that doesn't make sense, though, because I was listening to one of those. They have these commentators on. Some of them are quite expert every now and again. And I was listening to an expert engineer. He had been a minister, I think, at one point, quite an old man. And he said that these pylons should have been built with metal that would withstand gusts of 200 plus kilometers an hour. So he said they should not have all fallen down in the way that they did. But then I saw the Minister of Environment, who should know after all, and she said, no, these pylons have been built to withstand 150 kilometers an hour winds. So as we're getting higher than that, we'll have to start a system of burying the cables, or the whatever they are. Cables, aren't they?
They are.
But
cables.
she said that's going to take years.
It is. Or maybe we can look more locally. I mean, local power generation just strikes me as a better option, and it's not so vulnerable. But anyway, that's perhaps a side issue. Other things to... Sorry,
I don't know about your area, but where I am, I have a very, very tall son, and he almost gets snarled up in the number of wires that are coming into the house. It's ridiculous. There's so many wires, whether it's mail or, other things, they're all they zip around and then they get tied up by somebody who's dangling on a ladder. And it's all very Heath Robinson.
Yes. Yes, it is. It does look a bit like that. So that's a note to the national self, isn't it, to tidy that up as well. But it was incredible to see the top of those pylons actually buckled over in some places. Other things then that the PM mentioned here. This is an exceptional and experimental regime, which sounds interesting, to accelerate urgent repairs.
Getting help to people without asking too many questions.
Yes, 12 mobile teams who are traveling to areas still without power to help people access the relevant website and make their claims. That seems a little bit around the houses to me, to take a tour bus and connect them to the internet to make a claim. Can't they just give them the money direct? In that situation?
No, you can't have a van going around giving out money. You see, this is the same reason why but you can't, and you can't have the same situation as whereas you were talking about this man telling everybody they must leave their houses. A lot of people don't want to leave their houses because they've got things in their houses and they don't want them looted.
Yes, true. Yeah.
So you can't imagine that everybody, when you travel in a little van, wanting to list all the people that need help on Monday, you can't imagine that taking money instead would actually always go into the right hands.
No, but that's just a challenge and a problem anyway, isn't it? I mean, it is
a problem, but I think there have to be at least some measures. And in this case, what they're doing is they're getting everybody's details. They're saying, yes, Mrs. So-and-so, she's lost all her fridge, all her freezer, all this, all that. And then they're working it out and saying they'll have money, or help by Monday.
I mean,
people won't have power.
Perhaps again another a conversation for another time. But if there was ever going to be universal basic income, people could be given money, like what were they called, the payments in the pandemic. It would be probably easier to dispatch money into the economy rather than create a massive paper trail that's going to cost thousands more to evaluate later on down the line. But anyway, as I say,
you say that, but look at the mess that happened afterwards in England. Look at the mess England's in.
Oh, yes.
And it's all because
well, let's not go there, Natasha.
Yeah, exactly. That's all that spending that was done willy-nilly.
Yes, fair enough. Regardless of the weather, continuing with the Prime Minister here, regardless of the weather on Sunday, choosing the nation's highest magistrate. I thought this was a fabulous turn of phrase, and deciding the future of Portugal is a task, an honour, a duty and a right, he said, exhorting people's spirit of willingness and sacrifice so that they do not delegate to others a choice that they should make themselves. This, of course, about the election that will take place, as far as we know, on Sunday for the president.
Yeah, but there are a few places, Alcácer and a few other places. I think Agada, another one, Pombal.
There
are a few places who've all said, we're going to delay until the 15th.
Okay, all right. So that is discretionary for some parts.
And they're allowed to do that. But what you can't do is have the blanket delay. I mean, it's difficult to say. Obviously, all the polls are saying that the socialist candidate will absolutely walk it.
Do we believe polls anymore, Natasha? Do we believe polls? Do we leave polls? Do we believe polls?
Well, funnily enough, in this particular election, they've been pretty much spot on.
Right. Okay. All right.
They have. The thing is that also, if you look at just common sense, and it's a dreadful choice. The country's got a dreadful choice. I mean, I know a lot of people who say they don't want to vote for anybody. So it's going to be an interesting vote. There'll probably be quite high abstention, I would have thought.
Yes, and whilst if I may make this point, from a devil's advocate point of view, whilst the Prime Minister is saying, it's our democratic duty to exercise your vote. Yes, in any circumstance, in any other circumstances, that would be true. But so much of this will be about frustration and anger, won't it? Which isn't probably the best way to demonstrate your democratic right.
It could well be. It could well be. And in many respects, when people show their frustration and anger, they just don't turn up. They just say, forget it. We're not going to vote. Yes. Why should we vote for these people? Right. So I suspect that abstention will be much, much higher than it was, let's say, in the first round, where it was pretty good.
Yep. Okay. Yes, indeed. At around 47%, I think the turnout, wasn't it? apoioscalamidad.gov.pt was the link you gave in your article in good faith. That is not working at the moment. So we will have to update people on that. I couldn't get that
amazing.
To work.
Well, that's what happens. You see, what happens is that everybody wants to access something and then it can't take the traffic. I think you just have to keep trying.
Keep trying.
That's what they always say.
Okay, Honkin Happy joining us. Good morning, everyone. BS to those polls, says Hugh. Ventura 100% from you this morning. And perhaps we can well, let's go there, shall we? This is something else. Was this one of your articles about Ventura suggesting delaying Sunday's presidential?
Yeah, I mean, he's very clever. He's such a clever guy because he's done the most wonderful thing there, because he's shown people that he's not interested in his own political journey. He just wants people to be looked after, and so that the presidential election should be delayed. So I think he gave himself a very good lots of brownie points. Everybody said it can't be done, which again plays very well into his whole approach to what's going on in Portugal, which is that so much needs to be changed. And then, of course, the other guy who's running against him, Seguro, he made himself look quite pompous and silly by saying, of course, we are not going to delay the elections. And he's also behaved, I thought, rather childishly this week, constantly saying how dreadful it will be if Ventura gets in, which is what we don't need the highest magistrate of the country to start saying. He was looking much more like a fishwife than the highest magistrate of the country.
What an excellent description. And I find myself quite torn with this, because I've written myself in my column in The Resident this week about how the grown-ups have left the building. We're on our own. We're on our own, effectively, and that I think is the direction of travel, where we used to look to institutions and to be exercising our democratic right. And we might want to think twice about that and look after each other better on a local level. And at the same time, I'm wanting somebody less than a fishwife, and I'm looking for reassurance from the PM and the president to be a little bit more charismatic and human, and to say this is a terrible time, but we will get through this. That seems absent from the highest office, does it not?
I know. You see, I mean, people love to criticize Marcel, but he's two things where he's got the most fantastic charisma. He's got marvelous empathy with people, and he's highly intelligent. He reads the room. He knows all about what's going on geopolitically. He's always been talking about it. He's so spot on. So yes, of course, there have been some things that haven't gone, as they say in Portugal, that have gone less well. And it had, but the fact is, he has been a great guy for 10 years here. And what's coming next? I don't think it's going to touch Marcel.
No, indeed. It is perhaps the Ventura's prophecy, that the establishment does need a challenge, but does it need a challenge as big and as devastating as the one that he has to offer? That's where we're at, really, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, when we were talking during the presidential elections, there was a candidate, and I think he would have probably been very, very good, and with a kind of vision for the future that is different. And of course, that he got scuppered by some ridiculous, when I say ridiculous, some sort of, it had come out of nowhere, even though apparently it had been happening years before, some claim of sexual harassment.
Yes. So you're talking about Katrine, aren't you?
And I think that was also a very politically motivated attack. Because it came on the last week of campaigning, and he was doing pretty well up to that point. And I think he would have been a very good candidate to have been in the runoff, as we call it.
Well, he was broadsided by that, and it seems to be a familiar picture all over the world, doesn't it? That those sort of not moderate exactly, but common sense candidates that are not too extreme.
Bumped out with a sexual something,
they fall between the gaps, don't they? In the great polar spread of opinion and feeling, they drop through the middle somewhere. Sadly for him.
Yes, somebody comes forward and says, he gave me he propositioned me in the lift, and suddenly his entire worth goes through the floor.
Indeed. So maybe we'll see a resurgence of him and his efforts, and who he represents in the next round 5 years from now, where I suspect the Portugal and the world will look very different, Natasha. Dare you make a prophecy? I mean, you've been pretty spot on with your prediction.
I don't want to make a prophecy. Do you know what happened last night? There was this terrible clap of thunder.
Yeah,
I don't remember what time it was, but anyway, all my animals were like, "Ooh!" So I got everybody calmed, and I brushed the most worried one, because that if you brush her, she's always very pleased. And then I said, "Okay, come on, let's get into bed." And I put on a podcast because I love listening to podcasts, and they just send me to sleep because just people droning on, like us. And but I unfortunately chose a dreadful podcast which was talking about a nuclear arms race between China, Russia, and America. Now that the agreement that had been brokered by Obama years ago with Russia has expired, and I thought, I just don't need to hear this. I should turn it off. It's not good.
Maybe we can get you some good old-fashioned Ladybird books to retire with, or a little bit of Roald Dahl for you in the evening, perhaps, Natasha. Can we draw just finally then on your experience of being a foreigner, expat, immigrant? I don't know how you describe yourself, but you've lived here a long time in Portugal, and you've had your reservations about me saying, "Is this normal? This can't be normal. This sort of weather." But what's the best way for people to respond at the moment? From your experience of living a long time in this country and this culture, what's your advice to people?
It's second week of February. Yesterday even there was a break down in the Algarve. We had hours of sunshine. It was just fantastic. Everybody was feeling better. Everybody was pointing at the sun.
So sweet, isn't it? Look, yes, the hallelujah moment.
Everything passes. Winter turns into whatever you call it, spring. It'll all pass.
I remember that.
Is that it's so difficult when it's happening because of the fact that it's been raining so relentlessly, so that the ground and everything is. And I think the other thing that's really worrying, and it's going to start happening with more and more frequency, and I'm seeing it around here as well, and we've not been that badly affected, are landslides. Yes. They are starting, things are just starting to go because they just can't take any more pressure of water.
Okay, well, I think Your advice for 2026 still stands. Stay
Yeah,
close to
just be
home.
very careful and don't even. The reason I said don't think of going anywhere is I just feel that with the whole geopolitical tensions at the moment, flying, and remember we are only allowed to fly with like a suitcase the size of a postage stamp, so there's not much that you've got with you, and
The
then you
golden
fly,
age has
and
gone,
then
hasn't it? The golden age of air travel has gone,
unreal
Natasha.
how little you can take. And so then if you're then stuck for some days because flights are delayed, or this has happened, or that has happened, or a volcano's exploded, you know, something, so much is going on at the moment. If you do go away, you've got to factor in the fact that you might not come back when you thought. So
Yes.
I feel it's better to stay where we are.
Stay put. Fique en casa.
Yeah.
As
Well,
they
not
say.
fake in casa, but just stay where, you know, close to
Local.
home.
Okay. Localidad, I think might be the word. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Natasha, bon fin de semana to you. And we send, of course, our prayers, hopes for people who have been stricken and in terrible situations all over Portugal.
Exactly.
As a result of what's happened in just this last week, 8 days. So all the very best to our Portuguese compatriots, countrymen and women, and here's hopes and prayers for everybody for speedy recoveries. And this will be a long process, as you say, Natasha.
It'll be a long process, but let's hope that next time we talk, the rivers will be lower, people will be back in their homes, and you know they will have had some help, and no more people will have died falling off roofs.
Absolutely.
We
So
just had
let's leave
another
it
one.
there. Yeah, absolutely. Let's leave it there. Thank you, Natasha. Please subscribe on the Portugal Resident YouTube channel, and take care. And we'll see you again, as Natasha says, next week. Thanks, Natasha. Bye for now.
Bye bye. Bye bye.